Welcome back to Medrash Umaisa, sharing a story for the upcoming week's Parsha. A very special teacher of Torah in Yerushalayim shared the following story about the Chofetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen, one of the beloved Kohanim of Am Yisrael. And since Parshas Tizaveh speaks about the mitzvahs of the Kohanim, the clothes of the Kohanim, I thought it appropriate to share this story this week. One of his students received a position in America to give shiurim in an outreach center. When this Talmud, this young Rav, heard that his Rebbe was coming from Yerushalayim to America, he asked him to please visit his outreach center, give some shiurim. The Rav said that he was happy to do so. He came, he gave some shiurim, and then his Talmud approached him after a shiur and said that there's a man who's been very involved here, but he hasn't been able to come to your shiurim because of some work pressure. I was wondering, would you be willing to come visit him at his workplace? So the Rav said, why not? And they went over. The workplace was a print shop. When they entered, so the young man was so delighted both to see his Rebbe and his Rebbe's Rebbe, who was in from Yerushalayim. But there was someone else in the print shop as well, the man's father. The man's father was an older man, clearly of Eastern European origin, and his attitude made it very clear that he was not delighted to have rabbis visiting his workplace. So the Rav from Yerushalayim wanted to warm things up a bit, make some conversation. He asked him, he said, where did you come from in the old country? The man said, rather grumpily, Poland. I came from Poland. The young rabbi turned to him and said, really? You came from Poland? Did you know the Chofetz Chaim? So the Rav from Yerushalayim told me he looked at his student as if he had fallen off the moon. Why in the world would you ask him just because he came from Poland if you knew the Chofetz Chaim? It's like asking somebody from New York, do you know my cousin in Albany? Nonetheless, the man suddenly looked very serious, and he took an advertising supplement from the print shop and he put it on his head. And he said, I did know the Chofetz Chaim. And I'll tell you what happened. He said, I was a young boy, and I lived in a village that was not far from Radin, where the Chofetz Chaim lived. Our village was up in the mountains, and in the summer, Jews would come there because the air was clear and cool and pure. And one summer, they arranged for the Chofetz Chaim to come there to rest and to benefit from the fresh air. I was a little boy in Cheder at the time, and our Melamed told us that there's a very special Tzadik here, and I'm going to take you to him for a bracha. So we all got together, and he led us marching through the village to the little cabin that the Chofetz Chaim was staying in. Our Rebbe went in and spoke with him, and suddenly he came out. He said, I still remember how he looked. A klein yidela, a little Jew, still with his talis and tefillin on. He came over to us, and he said, your children who learn Torah, could you please give me a bracha? What the Chofetz Chaim was saying was that no matter how much Torah he knew, because all Jews are connected, he needed the koch of the bracha of these little children who learn Torah, something so precious and valuable, to be able to do what he did. This is the avodah of the Kohen. In this week's Parsha, when Aaron and his sons are dedicated to the kahuna, the pasuk emphasizes that it's mitoch b'nei Yisrael, from within b'nei Yisrael. The Avodas Yisrael, the Koshnitzer Magid, quotes the Magid of Mezrich in saying that the Kohen Gadol's avodah, even that special avodah in the Kodesh Kadoshim on Yom Kippur, is strengthened and depends on the avodah of each Jew, of our Torah and mitzvahs, even that little boy in Cheder. That message of connection left an impression that caused that man to put an advertising supplement on his head so many years later. Have a wonderful Shabbos.